What is going on, my fellow navigators, and welcome back to another video. My name is PokeNav, and I am here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time. Today, guys, I'm going to be going over my top 6 favorite Pokemon of all time, and then I'm also going to be discussing my favorite card of theirs from the TCG. And then on top of that, I'm also going to go into the most expensive card for each of those Pokemon out on the open market right now. But before we get started, guys, you know what to do. Go ahead and double slap that thumbs up button as well as that subscribe button. And as always, if you want to be notified when I drop a video, go ahead and thunder punch that notification bell as well so that you don't miss a single video. And with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and jump right into it with my top 6 favorite Pokemon of all time. And coming in at number 6 is the Guardian of the Sky, Ho-Oh. Now, from the time I was a little kid, I always was really intrigued with the mythos behind Ho-Oh. From the very first episode in the anime where Ash catches a glimpse of Ho-Oh after, he and Pikachu's big battle with the Spearow, to the second generation where you started to learn more about the reality of Ho-Oh. And I really liked the myth behind it, how there was a great war, and after that great war, Ho-Oh came down and restored the lives of Pokemon that were lost, and in doing so also created the 3 legendary dogs, Raikou, Suicune, and Entei. I just always really liked Ho-Oh. I really liked its design, and especially with the I Choose You movie that recently came out, where it went a little bit more into depth about the background of Ho-Oh. It's just really always been one of my favorite Pokemon. And as far as the cards go, my favorite Ho-Oh card has got to be from Neo Revelation, and it's card number 7 in that set. That card is just absolutely beautiful. I love the fact that there's so much design to it. It's a pretty powerful card as well, especially for being a vintage card. Back then we didn't have the HPs and the attack powers like we do now, but I just love the overall design of that particular card. Unfortunately, as a kid, I never was able to come by this card. I actually was able to get the other card, I believe it was number 18 in the set for Ho-Oh, which was actually the normal typing versus the number 7, which was the fire typing. And then as far as the most expensive card out on the market for Ho-Oh right now, that would have to be the Ho-Oh from Skyridge. And right now, that card, which is a beautiful card by all accounts, right now a PSA 10 is going for around $4,000. So if that's something that you're looking to include as part of your collection, it is quite pricey. But a beautiful card. Obviously, really anything from Skyridge is going to be incredibly valuable, but that would be the most expensive card out on the market right now. And coming in at number 5, this may not be a surprise to most of you, it's your boy Charizard. Yeah, that's right. I know I might be a little bit basic for including Charizard, but it's my list, so they're my favorite Pokemon, so I get to pick and choose. But Charizard has always been one of, for me, one of the most idealistic Pokemon. It's strong. It's a fire type, and I think we as kids, we always gravitated more towards fire types. In the anime, he and Ash, they really had their struggles in the beginning, but then they grew to have such a tight bond later on. And then when the time where he wanted to stay in the Charcific Valley to become stronger. I just loved the whole storyline behind Charizard. And as far as the TCG, my most favorite card for Charizard has got to be Blaine's Charizard from Gym Challenge. Just love the design of this. I love the set of Gym Challenge altogether, and obviously this was the cream of the crop of Gym Challenge, was this Blaine's Charizard. And this is what I was after as a kid. This Blaine's Charizard. Obviously, I love base set Charizard. That's probably the most nostalgic. But Blaine's Charizard just brought a whole new dynamic to the card game and to Charizard specifically. And then, as most of you might know, obviously the most expensive Charizard out there, you might have guessed it, is the base set Shadowless First Edition Charizard, coming in at a PSA 10. You're looking at, well over $50,000. I believe most prices now are coming in at about $55,000. And this is really going to top our list as the most expensive card, which shouldn't be a surprise to most of you. And making our way down the list, we are now at number 4. We had the Guardian of the Sky, and now we have the Guardian of the Sea, Lugia. I would say that my love for Lugia probably started with the second movie, Pokemon the Movie 2000, as that's where most of us were introduced to it as well. And I love Lugia just because it's really like the nexus of like the legendary birds, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres. It's really like the guardian of all of them and kind of oversees all the legendary birds. But just love Lugia as a Pokemon, love its design. And, more of Lugia's story was explained in the anime, and then now with the newest movie, The Power of Us, we got to see a little bit more of Lugia. But it's just always been one of my favorites, and just really enjoy that particular Pokemon. And as far as the cards go, by far and away, my favorite Lugia card is from Neo Genesis. And this is also, from what I could find, the most expensive card out on the market right now. Now, I actually have this card as part of my own personal collection. I was lucky enough, and I guess smart enough as a child to, when I got this card, I was so excited. Like this, it was so awesome to see this card in person and to have it up close. And so I really took care of it, as most kids did not take care of their cards. And unfortunately for most of my cards from my childhood, they're not in great condition. But this one I kept pristine all the way through. And I do plan on getting it graded at some point. The problem with this card is it's really hard to get in a PSA 10. Really hard to get in a PSA 10. And if you're looking online, the cards that have been sold at a PSA 10 are going for big money. The most recent one, I believe, was about $28,500. So beautiful card. Love Lugia. Love the backstory behind it. And the card from Neo Genesis has to be my favorite. And now coming in at number 3. Number 3, coming from a lowly Magikarp into the gigantic beast of the sea that it would become. This is none other than Gyarados. Early on in the Pokemon anime, and even in the card game and the video games as well, I loved Gyarados. I actually caught several Magikarp in red and blue, and evolved them into a Gyarados. And when that actually happened, I was blown away by this particular Pokemon. Just the sheer ferocity of it, how ferocious it looks. And I love the story and sort of the real life analogy of how you can go from just being a lowly Magikarp, kind of starting out to where you can't do much. All Magikarp could do was splash, and then evolving, growing and evolving into this, this gigantic and powerful beast of the sea that was feared by many, especially fishermen and captains and things like that. Just really brought a whole dynamic to it. And, you know, obviously there is a story to Gyarados. You know, if you go back into Japanese lore, there is the story of the, you know, the fish making its way up the waterfall, and if it does make its way up the waterfall, then it will become a dragon. So I love the backstory on that as well, the fact that it is tied to a legend in real life. As far as the TCG goes, by far and away, my favorite Gyarados card has to be the Shining Gyarados. And I believe that's from Neo Revelation. I just love how the card itself tells a story. You know, you can see Gyarados coming out of the water and the poor little guy on his boat, just terrified. I love how that card tells a story. And I loved how, you know, that was really one of the first shining Pokemon. And just the card itself, just beautiful. So that would have to be my favorite there. Most expensive though for Gyarados, we're going back to, again, base set Shadowless first edition in a PSA 10. This card's going for around $6,000, which base set is also a beautiful card. That was the first Gyarados that I ever acquired, was a base set. It wasn't Shadowless, it was just regular unlimited, but I just love the design on that card as well. And making our way up to the number 2 spot, guys, here we have none other than the legendary Pokemon Dragonite. That's right, Dragonite. I think my love for Dragonite started with the anime episode. You guys might remember this one where Ash and his friends make their way up to Bill's lighthouse, and you know, they have the encounter with the enormous, what appears to be a giant Dragonite. And the mystery behind that really intrigued me. And then also, you know, with the card game, and also with the video games as well, you know, Lance's Dragonite, the final person that you face in the Pokemon League, you know, his ultimate Pokemon was the Dragonite. And it just, I loved, you know, I guess, you know, we all love dragons, right? I mean, you see that across any type of pop culture. Dragons always seem to come to the top. But I loved its design. I loved how, you know, that was kind of your final boss that you had to battle in Red and Blue. And I loved the mystery behind it in the anime as well as it being kind of one of the last Pokemon to be discovered in the original 151. Just all of those things tied together really make it to, you know, near the top of my list as, you know, my most favorite Pokemon. And as far as the card goes, my favorite card for Dragonite has to be the Dark Dragonite from Team Rocket. This was the first Dragonite that I had acquired as a child, so it brings back a lot of nostalgia for me in particular. And just love the design. I love how it's a little bit edgy. You know, all of the dark Pokemon sort of had this kind of sinister vibe to them. And I just really loved that about this particular Dragonite. As far as the most expensive card goes, I've seen varying degrees. Some it is the Dark Dragonite, but for the most part, the most expensive cards that I see that are actually being sold is the Dragonite from Fossil. And for that particular card, which is also beautiful in its own right, is going for around $5,000 to $8,000 in a PSA 10, of course. All right, guys, we have finally made our way up to the number 1 spot on my list of the top 6 favorite Pokemon of all time, as well as my favorite cards for those Pokemon. And coming in at number 1 is Mewtwo. That's right. Now, I don't see this on really the top of anyone's list, but for me personally, especially after the first movie, I really grew to love Mewtwo as a Pokemon, as well as his backstory. And even going back to the video games of Red and Blue, you know, once you had defeated the Pokemon League, there was still this kind of lingering question of there's a powerful Pokemon out there, you know, genetically created by the scientists of Team Rocket, and it left like this last little quest for this, you know, all-powerful Pokemon. So that's kind of where it started for me. But then once the first movie came out and we started to learn more about Mewtwo, more about his backstory, I just really resonated with that. The fact that he really came into the world not knowing who he was, his purpose in life, and then, you know, ultimately culminating in that final famous quote at the very end, which states, "The circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are." That's something, even as a kid, that really got to my heartstrings and really resonated with me on a deep level. And I feel like, you know, that's something that's kind of stuck with me through most of my life. That particular quote, and just the whole aspect of him discovering himself and continually discovering himself. We've seen in, you know, follow-up movies, things like Mewtwo, or Mewtwo Returns, I believe was the name of it. That's where we had Brock's famous quote. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. You know, where he's still trying to discover himself, still trying to figure out his place in the world and the place for, you know, some of his other cloned Pokemon. Just really love everything about Mewtwo and you know, his place within the Pokemon world. Now, as far as my favorite card from the TCG, this would have to be the Shining Mewtwo from Neo Destiny. Again, one of the first Shining Pokemon to be released in the TCG, and just a beautiful card overall. It's obviously not the most expensive card out there. We would again have to go back to base set Shadowless. A PSA 10 for that card is going for upwards of $20,000. Neo Destiny, I'm not sure of the prices on that, but for me, I just love that particular card. I love the way that he looks in the card, kind of the fierceness in his eyes, and just really everything about it. And I know as a kid, it was one of my most sought after cards to attain, and eventually I was able to come by it, you know, later on in life, and it's probably by far and away my most favorite card of all time, as well as my most favorite Pokemon of all time. So that is going to do it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video counting down my top 6 favorite Pokemon of all time, as well as the cards for those Pokemon that are my favorites, as well as, you know, finding out, you know, exactly how expensive some of these Pokemon cards are in the TCG for the most prized cards. But again, guys, appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate you showing up each and every day. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video. My name is PokeNav, here to help you navigate the world of Pokemon one video at a time, and I'll see you all in the next video.